Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So, more from Sky News, also obviously about Gaza, and it seems like every day is a different story, like where it gets worse and worse. So, the first part is about the hostages. I think he actually was on Sky News originally. It's the brother of one of the hostages of the video that's just been released. So, from BBC News, I've got that. Actually, it's not Sky. BBC News, which shows, well, they talk about the video, and they also talk about the hunger in from the other side as well. And that's the thing that struck me when the Israeli, the hostage, the brother of the hostage, was talking about how food wasn't getting in to them because the Red Cross aren't, because usually the Red Cross would be assisting hostages. And just and I've mentioned this many times on the Pursuit of Truth, and it's interesting where you hear both sides, Gazans and also Israelis talking about, obviously the Israelis talk about the hostages and their treatment and the inhumane nature of it, and then obviously the Gazans will talk about the inhumane treatment that they're receiving and like collective punishment of those that aren't affiliated with the terrorist organization Hamas. And that's why it always brings me down to, like, when I talk about the intrinsic truth, the only intrinsic truth, because most of the things that we believe that we don't even think about because we just know them from being taught them, is the intrinsic truth that we're all human beings, and men or women or people before us divided us all up in land and different ways, and we forget about that. And yet this is where it comes out, because you hear human beings talking about the same thing. They're talking about the suffering of their fellow human beings, but then they forget that, well, that's happening to the other side as well. And each side seems to forget about that. Not all people. There are some people that see from both sides that, yeah, this is what we're doing to each other is wrong, from both sides and from elsewhere. And yeah, just to see those images of him looking so, like he's digging his own grave. That's what he says he's doing in this very small, cramped tunnel, and he's wasting away. And then to hear his brother talking to the UN, and after that, I don't have that bit, but I heard some of the other countries with their platitudes of, like, reading out this long speech about how they are against, what Hamas are doing, this, that, and the other, and yet, well, that's not going to stop it, is it? And the thing is, like, the system that we live within, the only thing that stops anything is war. And like Benjamin Netanyahu has been doing, well, that hasn't worked either, because it hasn't got back the hostages. In fact, the peace negotiations got back more than any other way so far. And then you've got these baseless claims of, like, UK and France, recognising the bit of land of Palestine as being somehow problematic for hostages or for the ongoing war that is in the hands of Benjamin Netanyahu. It's just, this is the thing. It's, as usual, the little people are suffering wherever they are, and those people in charge are not suffering, and they're making all these decisions that are not best of interest of the human beings that they claim to govern and care about. And that's why I talk about the system. It isn't beneficial for humanity, the way that we run ourselves. And these are just examples of what happens when you have this system, in the way that it dissociates ourselves from each other. And the intrinsic truth, the only intrinsic truth, that we are all human beings and we're all the same, and we should treat each other all the same. And when we divide ourselves, that's where these things creep in, of, like, well, I'm going to think about my little box. And, that's how we're brought up, to be patriotic to the bit of land that, that we, just by luck of our parents, have been born into. If we were born somewhere else, we'd have a totally different ideology. Same as, like I talk about, where, children are born blank and we're just products of our time and place. And that will determine everything. And then I guess it boils down to the question is, who is to blame for the things that we believe and do? Is it us, or is it those that teach us? Is it those that allow us to be taught these ways? I don't know, that's I guess a philosophical kind of question. And then after that, it is from Sky News. They show an aerial footage of Gaza, how it's looking, destroyed, and there's an aid drop, and talking about Benjamin Netanyahu's plan now to he wants to, like Trump had already mentioned earlier in the year, take over Gaza, and I guess he says to give it back to Arab forces. I don't know which Arab forces these would be. I don't know why it wouldn't go to, I guess the PLO don't exist anymore, do they? Who is actually in control of, the other parts of Palestine rather than Gaza? Are they elected? I don't know, but it's just a very dangerous thing, because they can set out these agreements of that Hamas has to go, and if Hamas doesn't go, then that means that Israel never has to give that land over. And then I don't get it. Do they not have to have any kind of UN regulations, or is there no legislation? Is it because it's stateless that they're allowed to just take over this bit of land? Is it actually Israel that owns that bit of land? Who owns that bit of land that you can just go in and say, well, I'm going to displace everyone, which is against international law, or I'm going to control it, and you have to then, I'm going to be in control of that land and usurp the government, as it were? Who is that? Is that legal to do that? You don't have to fill out any paperwork or do anything. You can just do that. I don't know if it's because it's stateless that's the reason why, or it's because they're in a war. I get why they're doing it, because I think all of us would agree that everyone would agree with any sense that they would want to get rid of anyone that treats people like Hamas do. I guess there would be some people who would be loyal to Hamas that would say that they're the only one fighting their battle of the land, and the way that Gaza and Palestine is treated, like in the West Bank and etc., and the settlers, and the 1967 disagreement over land and this, that, and the other. But like I say, if we didn't, I don't believe in all these tags, but if we didn't live like that, then we wouldn't be arguing about that, because like I say, all that we ever argue about is the same things throughout history: is land, who controls you, and money plays a part in that as well. If we got rid of all that stuff and started to see the truth that we're all actually human beings, we only have one existence, and why can't we bloody live with each other nicely and solve all our problems?
There's been widespread outrage after Hamas released videos showing 2 Israeli hostages alive but emaciated. The EU Foreign Affairs chief called the videos appalling. Israeli protesters blocked the main Tel Aviv highway during morning rush hour on Sunday, calling for the immediate release of the hostages and the end of the war. While on Sunday night, tens of thousands of people, including the families of hostages, turned out for the weekly rally in Tel Aviv. Israeli media described it as the largest turnout in recent months. Meanwhile, in Gaza, the health ministry says 6 more people have died from starvation and malnutrition as the hunger crisis continues. Israel doesn't allow the BBC and other news organizations to report independently from inside Gaza. So Amir Nader sent us this report from Jerusalem, and a warning: it contains images of malnutrition and death that you may find distressing from the very start.
Ibrahim mourns his brother Atif, 17 years old. He died today after 20 days in hospital, his family say. Until a month ago, he'd never been ill. He developed problems with his nerves, they said, and then malnutrition gripped his body. Outside Shifa Hospital, Atif's father grieved the loss of his son.
He never even had the flu. What happened to him? The same thing that everyone is suffering from. Not enough to eat, not enough to drink. I have nothing else to say.
Humanitarian organizations say Gaza needs to be flooded with aid to reverse an unfolding famine. The UN says Israel is issuing fewer denials, but is still continuing to impede aid getting in. Israeli leaders continue to reject widespread criticism of its restrictions on food entering Gaza. Its foreign ministry saying today that it's only Israeli hostages that are being deliberately starved. Evyatar David looks emaciated in this most recent hostage video. His family want the pictures to be seen, calling it a vile propaganda campaign by Hamas. Today, hostage families called on Israel to return to ceasefire negotiations.
We will not get our children back unless the Israeli government places a real initiative on the table.
US envoy Steve Witkoff is reported to have told hostage families today that Hamas is willing to disarm, causing an immediate denial by the armed group, saying they'll only disarm when a sovereign state of Palestine is established. But in Gaza, people's needs are much more immediate. Palestinians call out hunger and near daily attacks by Israeli troops on people seeking aid, something Israel denies. And they plead for Hamas leaders to return to the table.
Today, everyone is being killed trying to get aid. I tell Khalil Hayya to have mercy on your people. You're negotiating for your people and those who put you there.
Ceasefire negotiations remain stalled, but desperation runs ever higher, and those in pain call for the hunger and the war to end. Amir Nader, BBC News, Jerusalem.
ב-28 שעה 12, אין לי מושג אם יהיה אוכל, אין לי שמץ של מושג. אני רוצה להגיד לראש הממשלה, לנתניהו, שאני פשוט מרגיש שאני מופקר פה לחלוטין. מה שאני עושה עכשיו, אני חופר את הקבר, הקבר שמיועד מבחינתי לי, כי כל יום שעובר הגוף שלי הולך, נחלש.
עצום שחסום ממטאור בלתי ניתן להזזה.
Watching helplessly as my younger brother, Evyatar David, and his fellow hostage, Guy Gilboa Dalal, slip away. They are on the absolute brink of death.
הילד שלי גוסס. ראיתי את זה בעיניים שלי. וגם ראש הממשלה ראה את זה. והוא יודע על מצבו של רום ושל שאר החטופים. ובכל זאת הוא בוחר שוב ושוב שלא להציל אותו.
Mr. President, members of the Security Council, distinguished delegates, my name is Eli David, and I am speaking before you today not as a politician or a diplomat, but as a brother. My younger brother, Evyatar David, along with Guy Gilboa Dalal and 48 other hostages, are being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. Evyatar is the kindest person I know. I learned from him how to be a better son. He is shy, but full of life. He has the soul of a musician. He has played the guitar since he was 10, and we play together every week. I miss his smile, and I miss his hug, and I just want to see him hug my parents. Evyatar was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. At the age of 22, he went there to celebrate life, to dance, to enjoy the music he loves. Music is a very big part of who he is. Since that day, my brother and the other hostages have endured an unimaginable nightmare. This is not just a figure of speech. Their lives are truly hanging by a thread. We now know from medical reports and other indications that Eviatar, Guy, and the others are the brink of death. They may only have days left to live. Days. That is how urgent that is. They have each lost nearly half of their body weight. My little brother now weighs only around 40 kilograms. That's just around 90 pounds. Please see this picture of me and my siblings. This is me right here. This is me, my younger sister. This is Eviatar. Look at his smile. The world has heard about the atrocities of Hamas, of October 7th, and in the 22 months since. But what is happening to Eviatar and Guy is an act of calculated and depraved cruelty that defies human comprehension. We have heard the testimonies from those who were released from Hamas tunnels. And every account makes our fears worse. When your brother, your son, your father, your partner is being held in Gaza, there is never good news. The only thing you can hold on to is that they might still be alive. But even that hope is fading, because the truth is, we don't know how much time they have left. 5 months ago, on February 22nd, we received what we thought at the time was the cruelest possible emotional torment to Eviatar. In February, after 500 days in captivity, Hamas broadcasted Eviatar and Guy. They were brought out of the tunnels. Hamas forced them to watch their fellow captives being released. Then, Eviatar and Guy were sent back into the dark tunnels. You could see clearly Guy here, right here, and this is Eviatar. We thought at the time that this was the pinnacle of evil. But then, just this past weekend, we received a new video from hell. We were reminded just how much more cruel and inhumane Hamas and its sick partners are. My brother was a living skeleton. He had barely the strength to move or speak, his voice barely recognizable. In that video, my little brother was forced to speak to the world and then actively began to dig his own grave inside a filthy, dark tunnel in Gaza. My mother and I could not even bring ourselves to watch it. We knew that if we did, we would be unable to function. My father and sister, however, felt they had to see him, to hear his voice, to feel him somehow. Now those images haunt them. My father cannot sleep, and my mother has not stopped crying ever since. What would you do if, God forbid, it was your son, brother, partner, father? We are here because we and the other hostage families cannot wait any longer. We need to reunite with them, to hug them, and to feel them close. There are still fathers whose children are waiting for their return. We are all waiting for everyone's return. For us, the mission is very clear and urgent. We must save Eviatar's life and the life of his friend Guy. We must ensure that all hostages are being released immediately and unconditionally. We don't have more time. They don't have more time. And every minute counts. The last video also exposed another horrifying truth. As my younger brother, a living skeleton, was forced to speak and dig his future grave, you can see the chubby and well-fed hand of Hamas terrorists enter into the frame. This is the hand of his captor, and this is my brother. You can see the hand is even thicker than his leg, than my brother's leg. Suddenly, Hamas confirmed what we have known for months. The terrorists have plenty of food. The only ones starving in Hamas tunnels are the hostages, my brother, Guy, and the 48 others. According to testimonies, we know that the terrorists are in a room nearby, not in the filthy dungeon where Eviatar and Guy are held. They are choosing to starve them as part of a sick and twisted propaganda campaign. They use them and starve them as a weapon of war. Survivors of captivity, including Tal Shoham and Omer Venkert, were held in the same space with my brother Eviatar and his friend Guy, testified to this. They told us that the terrorists always had plenty of food nearby and would even relish it loudly, while the hostages had none. It is all part of a calculated plan to torture the hostages, starve them, break their spirit, both psychologically and physically. This is a humanitarian crisis, the one of the hostages, that is being discussed here. Not here in the Security Council, and not in the other UN forums. The very soul of humanity is being scarred by Hamas's barbaric actions. We, the family of Eviatar, refuse to give up hope. We are weeping and suffering, but we are also fighting with every fiber of our being. We will not give up until we see him back home, until my mother and father can hug him again. I'm here to make a direct and urgent call to this esteemed body. First, we must demand the immediate unconditional release of Eviatar David, Guy Gilboa Dalal, and all the other hostages, living and deceased. Not only demand, but put every leverage we can to do so. The time for deliberation has run out. Their lives depend on immediate action. Eviatar, Guy, and the very least 18 other hostages are still alive. After 660 days, they have somehow managed to survive. And we call on you to rescue them from Hamas dungeons underground. Second, we must call for humanitarian aid to reach the hostages. While aid flows into Gaza to help the population, the hostages are being denied even the most basic necessities of life. They haven't received a shred of humanitarian aid since they were captive. This is a flagrant violation of international law. And third, we must recognize that this is a matter of life and death, requiring urgent medical intervention. Eviatar and Guy need immediate access to proper food and life-saving medical care. Every moment of delay is a step closer to a final tragic outcome. We all have responsibility. To the leaders of the world, to every member of this council, and to the global community, your silence is the face of this monstrous cruelty, is complicity. I urge you, do not let them die. We don't have time. Do not let them spend another minute in darkness, suffering beyond imagination. While we do our part, demanding from the Israeli government to do everything to save the hostages, all leaders should unite to pressure Hamas and its partners. Act now before it's too late. Save Evyatar David. Bring my little brother home. Thank you.
We're on one of the Jordanian aid flights preparing to drop these aid parcels into Gaza. It is not enough. It is still just a trickle of aid, but at least it is something. And I wanted to bring you up to date with what the Israeli Security Cabinet has decided overnight, a long 10-hour meeting where they have determined that they will escalate and take full security control of the Gaza Strip. First of all, by pushing into Gaza City. Now, they've gone into Gaza City on numerous occasions over the last 22 months, but now clearly they have decided that they want to take the city in its entirety. And what we understand from Israeli media is that means that they will try and evacuate the 800,000 or so Palestinians living there by October the 7th, which is clearly a symbolic date, and then take over the whole city and try and remove Hamas from there. They've agreed to 5 principles. I'll just read them out to you. The disarming of Hamas, the return of all the hostages living and deceased, demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of an alternative civil administration that is not Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. And in a television interview with Fox News just before this cabinet meeting, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, said rather vaguely that he hoped that Arab forces could take control of Gaza at some point in the future. Now, this is extremely unpopular within Israel. We've seen demonstrations from the hostage families who fear that it will put the remaining 20 hostages' lives at risk, and Hamas has come out with a statement saying clearly Benjamin Netanyahu is willing to sacrifice the remaining hostages. It is also unpopular with the upper echelons of the military leadership, the chief of staff, who fear that the army is already exhausted and overstretched, and this could cost soldiers' lives. And of course, for Palestinians in Gaza, it means more death and more displacement. They are already multiple times displaced. They are squeezed up, especially in the Al-Mawasi area by the coast in the south of the Gaza Strip. Conditions are untenable. Famine is terrible. Starvation. These aid packs are simply not enough. They need a flood of humanitarian aid, and that is not something that we are seeing, and that full-blown military escalation will make a lot harder. As if life in Gaza wasn't hard enough, there is now a heat wave to compound the problems of minimal water, food, or the basics you need to keep your newborn alive, to keep your children halfway clean. When you've been displaced over and over again, when you're forced to live under tarpaulin, rammed up against your neighbours. And here in Gaza City, when Israel's new offensive will likely force you to move again.
We suffer greatly, especially due to living in tents. They're made of cloth and plastic that do not protect us from the heat. In addition, there's no electricity, drinking water, or water for washing, no fans or air conditioning. We use trays and cardboard to cool off.
In Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, the crowds have swelled these past 2 Saturdays after Hamas published propaganda videos showing 2 of the remaining hostages starving in captivity. And now Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to push ahead with full security control of the Gaza Strip. A ramping up of the military operation when people here just want it to stop.
I'm really sad for everybody. For us, I feel hostages as well in my own country, that I cannot do anything. Nobody listened to me.
When you talk about the government, it's not only Gaza. They're trying to undermine the democracy in Israel. They're trying willingly, they understand it, to destroy the whole Israel. They don't care, just for another year or 2 for their survivors.
Calls too for soldiers to refuse to carry out the Gaza City takeover plan. think of how many weeks that people have been coming out here to Hostage Square since October the 7th, and still here we are, and they have this sense that their government just has taken no notice of them. There is this sense of hopelessness, really, that the last voice that Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be listening to is that of the hostage families and all those who support them.
Shut down your irrelevant organization.
Another major point of contention, what many see as the failure of the International Red Cross to bring food to the hostages. Food for the Palestinians in Gaza, not much discussed, except for a small group on the fringes.
So we believe that the Israeli public is ignorant on purpose. Some of it wants to stay ignorant, and some the government manages to keep them ignorant to what is going in Gaza, and they're ignorant as well to what is going in the occupied territories.
Benjamin Netanyahu seems to have made up his mind to ramp up the fight, neither international outcry nor that of these tens of thousands likely to stop him. Dana Magne, Sky News, Tel Aviv.